Welcome students, welcome to the Department of Chemical Engineering. We have the course Chemical Technology in SEM 2 of your second year, 4-year BTech course in Chemical Engineering. Myself Prashant Bhasing, I have done my MTech from IIT Kanpur and currently working as a lecturer in RGKT IIIT Basar. So in today's module, we have to discuss about the orientation to the chemical technology. Then we will see the chemical industries in India and then types of the chemical industry, and then we will go for the syllabus for CS2004 for chemical technology and how the modules are designed for this course and which books you have to refer, that you will see in brief. So coming to the orientation to the chemical technology. So chemical technology is essential part of everybody's life and the chemicals used by every person in day-to-day life. So the chemicals like soap, oils, shampoos, textiles, plastic, petroleum, then metal objects and many more are there to name, which comes in a contact while we are dealing with the life. So as far as the metal objects are considered, they are not directly the chemicals, but the chemicals which are used to extract these metals comes in the chemical technology. And then why we have to learn chemical technology? Because it is one of the major industry amongst all other industries. And why it becomes the major? Because not only it shares the major in the economics of the country, but also it produces drugs, dyes, paints and polymers and many more are there to name. So it's, as being the one of the major industry among the country, we have to study them in detail and see how they impact the country's economy also as the growth of the chemical industry. Then we will see the growth of chemical industry in India and we will discuss some of the issues related with the world also. But majorly we will try to discuss the chemical industry picture with reference to the India. And then what is the role of a chemical engineer? So as far as the chemical engineers are considered, they work majorly in the process and R&D. So as far as the AICHE, that is American Institute of Chemical Engineers, they have mentioned in their reports that around 50% of chemical engineers, they do work in process industry, which is directly related with the chemical industry, and the half of them works in the R&Ds, that is research and developments. So in India, we have the CSIR labs, that is Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, established by the government of India, and that does research in the R&D. Also the premier institute like IITs, NITs and then many are in the country that work for the growth of the chemical industry. So we will see them brief in further modules. So we will quickly discuss about the work of a chemical engineer. So as far as the chemical engineering is concerned, so what it was seen earlier, that the mechanical engineer and the chemistry people, they are not able to give focus more on the design of the chemical industry. So the new branch that was emerged in the late 90s, that was the chemical engineering. And since then, chemical engineering is a separate branch in engineering. So chemical engineers, they do work in the material balance. So all of you have done with the chemical process calculation. So it was nothing but the material balance and the energy balance. So you are familiar with this topic, and also you have seen the flow diagrams that will come in the further models. So as far as the chemical engineers considered, so they have to do the material balance, then they have to do the energy changes and energy balances, and then they have to go for the preparation of the flow charts. So there are many kinds of flow charts we will discuss in further models. And then they have to go for the chemical process selection and the design and operation. Later on they have to go for the chemical process control and instrumentation, means which kind of control system required for the chemical industry and which kind of the instrumentation needed in a chemical industry. So that work mainly done by the chemical engineers. And as far as the chemical process economics, which is integral part of industry, is considered, we have to look for the competing process. That means if there are more than one process available for the manufacturing of a chemical, then we have to choose a reaction which gives the maximum yield and also good conversion. So as far as the chemical engineer is considered, the aim is always to equalize yield equal to conversion. So yield means how much the input is converted into the output, whereas the conversion is specifically deals with how much conversion is taking place from the input. So if the conversion is not sufficient, we have to recycle them again and again in order to get the maximum conversion. Yield may be 80%, but conversion may be 10%. So in this case, we have to recycle it again and again, which add up to cost. So we have to look for the process, and we have to design the parameters so such that the yield should be equal to the conversion, and that is the most efficient and most economical process. Then we have to go for the material balances, means we should not waste any single gram of a material that we are putting in a chemical process. So we have to go for the material balance, and we have to see where is the materials going, or we have to look for the material flow. Then obviously the energy will decide the economics of your product. So you have to look for the energy, and we have to go for the process which is energy efficient. So energy mainly taken in pumps and the reactor to stir and many other processes. So we have to look for the instrument which are the more efficient as far as the energy conversion is taking place. Then the main thing is labor. So as far as the India and China scenario is considered, labor being the cheap. But in Indian scenario, nowadays the prices of the products, they are increasing, so it will impact on the labor also. They also want more salary, so the labor price also increasing nowadays. So you have to see that the process is automated, means it should run with the computers, so that we can reduce more and more labor and we can have the more good economics for the chemical industry. So in other way, we have to decrease the labor and we have to go for the automation. And in doing this one, we should have the proper knowledge of the computers and how the process control equipments runs in a chemical industry. Then we have to look for the overall cost of the industry. Then the next thing comes is the purity of the product. So your product should be as much pure as possible, because more the quality, good will be the price. If you can't keep the quality of product good, your product will not be accepted in the market. And then packaging. It may happen certain times the product may not be good, but if you package in such a way that is more say, means the people go for the packaging and they will take it. So many products you can name of them. So we have to go for the packaging. Also the packaging is required for the product. Suppose product is perishable, then we have to go for the good packing. If you take the example of milk, then now the Tetra Pak is there. So Tetra Pak means more than 4 levels of coating over it. So milk is a perishable, it can be degraded very easily and can be attacked by bacteria, and we want it should be good condition for more than 3 or 4 days till it reaches to consumer. So you have to go for a good packaging. So that will save your product also, and that will have the good price in market. And then lastly, we have to go for the sales. We have to increase in sales, and we have to find the particular consumers which can use those products. Like if you take the case of the fatty acids, so major consumer of fatty acid will be the soap industry, because soap requires the fatty acid as a raw material. So we have to look for the specific industry. So as far as the chemical process economics is considered, we have already done in the managerial economics. So you can take the example from manager economics and you can look. So there are many other things in economics like land, the plant location, and many other things. So you should look for the manager economics for the chemical process economics calculations. Now we'll see the chemical industries in India, how they work in India. So this we will discuss with reference to the production picture for India, the raw material picture for India, the energy picture of India, and lastly the transportation picture of the India. Coming to the first, the production picture of the India. So what we have, So we have increased our industrial output from 8% to 40% in just 25 years. So after independence, we have looked for the industrial output and we have gone up to the 40%. So after independence, country has become self-sufficient in almost all major heavy chemicals. So earlier, India was the main exporter of the raw materials, and we were buying the products from the other countries like the electronics and other materials, textiles. But nowadays, we can manufacture electronics and the other textile in our own country. So India is becoming more sufficient, and finished products from other country, we are not importing India, because if we import them, it will highly impact on the economics. So we should think about the more and more exports and less depend on the imports. So country has become self-sufficient in that case. Then government of India has adopted new policies. So earlier there were less chance for any foreign companies to invest in India. But after 1992, government has introduced new model for the companies, and that has led to the globalization. So globalization due to the free market models means the companies from other countries, they can come in India and they can set up their R&Ds or plants. So that will lead to the employment in own country, the sales. Also it will boost the economics of the country. Then due to the government policies, our export is increasing, and that has led to the foreign exchange reserves surging. So the foreign companies, they are feeling free to come India. Also the labor is cheap over here, and the good talent you can find in the India. So more skilled laborers, also talented in India, also the good policy adopted by government, and that's why the more foreign companies, they have entered in the Indian market. So naming of few like Enron in USA, Toshiba of Japan, Motorola and many more from USA and other worlds, they are coming in India. In this era, the international economy also has changed, and the change economy of the world scenario has given benefits to the India. Naming of them, the Gulf state, they were exporting the raw petroleum products. But due to the change international economy, they can supply the petrochemicals also to the India. Then another example is new line is to set up to transport the petroleum from Oman to India, another natural gas line from Qatar to Maharashtra. So that has led to the good sign as far as the economy is considered. So Indian industry is boosting up in this era. So next one is the raw material picture for the India. So what we have endowed with a large variety of minerals. If you can see the India is distributed into the many parts like north region, south region, west and the east region. So you can find the geographical conditions of India is also varying, and due to the geographical variation, the minerals found, they are also of the wide variety. So we have the coal, iron, mica and manganese reserves in very sufficient manners. Means we don't have to import them. They are very well sufficient in the own country. But except aluminium, we have deficient in other non-ferrous deposit. So in India, Bihar and Jharkhand state, they have the major mineral wealth, and also other states also have the other mineral deposits. As far as the petroleum is considered, petroleum reserves are less in India, and we have to depend on the Gulf countries to meet demands. So it is not in favor of India. The petrochemicals in India, they are very less to meet the demand of the Indian customers. So the petroleum which is produced at the Bombay High and Digboi and Godavari river banks, they are not sufficient to meet the market demands. And also the increased population and the increased economy of the India, that led to the good wealth in the country, and the standard of living also is high. So more people are buying more and more vehicles, also they are using more and more equipment that runs on the petrochemicals. So what that has led? So that led to the high demand in the petrochemicals, but in India we don't have sufficient petroleum. Also, the petroleum found in this region is also not a good quality. They have the more sulfur content and other materials. So we can't refine them in a pure form, or we have to go for the very rigorous processes in order to make the petrol and diesel and other petrochemicals in a very good quality forms. So that's why we have to depend on the other countries like Gulf countries, and that's why the economics, the major part of the money goes for the importing of these petrochemicals. Now you have seen in the papers the petroleum prices are hiking day by day. So the earlier the barrel which were importing for $50 or $60, now it has went more than $100 for barrel. So that hike in country is not a good sign for the Indian economy. Also you can see the last month's review. So the price of the petrol increased many times within a single month. So what that leads, so we have to look for the other materials than the petrol. So that will come later, which are the different materials. That is not the part of the today's module, but you have to search for the other materials than the petrochemicals. So due to the high import of the petrochemicals, they are in the Indian economy is not in a good condition. So iron reserves, they are the 5% of the total world reserves. And the good thing is, we are the 80% mica contribution to the world. Also it ranks third for the manganese. Then in India, many reserves are unknown. So we have to search for the new mineral reserves, and then we can have the more minerals in India. And then the country is self-sufficient in as many as 30 odd minerals, which otherwise have to be imported. So this is a good sign, but only the petrochemicals and the coal, which is of not a good quality. So these two major things have impacted the Indian economy and finally the chemical industry in India. The next thing is the energy picture of the India. So this will include the exploration and the exploitation of the primary energy resources, transportation of these resources to the locations of conversion, production of energy and transport to the consumption points, and to find out the consumption pattern. So first we have to look for the exploration and exploitation, then how to transport to the location of conversion, then once is converted, then how to transport to the consumer point, and then we have to look for which consumers they will consume the energy. So after independence, the capacity increased to 50 times. So it was 1362 megawatts in 1947. That has reached to 70,000 megawatts in 1994. Also, the major energy produced in India is on thermal base, means using of coal, and that burning of coal, the energy will reduce. That will lead to the steam generation, and steam will rotate turbines, and that will lead to the energy. So that is 70% as far as the today's scenario is considered. But still, due to the increased economy and the increased population, the power shortage we can find up to 10,000 megawatts. So to deal with this problem, industry, they are adopting two methods. They are generating power within house, or they have to look for the alternatives that will reduce the energy consumption. So that can be by the development of new instrument or more energy efficient instrument. So one of the method they are using is the waste heat recovery. That is WHR. So in industry, if you see, whatever the waste heat is generated, that we can capture and we can utilize for the energy production. Then in India, the major attention is given over the nuclear energy, because nuclear energy is a very clean source of energy and it can produce very high amount of energy. But what are the disadvantages? That nuclear fuel is much more expensive. Also, the Japan disaster have told world that it is not the safe way of the production. So we have to look for the major safety measures for the production of the nuclear energy. It can be beneficial in long terms. It may not be the cheap in the short run, but it can be very cheap in a long term. But we have to go for the development. Also we have to look for the safety hazard for the nuclear energy. Then the new projects are proposed in near future both in hydro and nuclear energy. So naming a few, you can read of the Jaitabad project in Maharashtra of the nuclear power project. Also, you know the many nuclear plants, they are already working in India, but the contribution of them toward the energy is very less. Then next comes the transportation picture of the India. So it is the integral part of the economic picture, and the transportation in India mainly done by rail, road, sea, pipeline and the air. So rail network in India is very well spread, and that's why we can use for the transportation. But the problem with the rail is the complexity of rail gauges. Means somewhere we can find broad gauge, somewhere we can find meter gauge, narrow gauge. So while changing the gauges, it will take more time. Also, it is not easy to handle the cargo. So it becomes more difficult for the transportation through rails. Also, it's not reliable. Also, the main parts of the rail is not connected in India. So that's why only the major cities we can use the rail. Then road transport, which is widely used for the freight movement, which is 50% of the total, and other is 80% for the passenger traffic. Then water transport, which is mainly used for import and export trading. And water transport is very cheap because through sea line we don't have to build roads, we don't have to maintain them. Also we have the very large boats and ships by which we can transport the material to the other country. So nowadays water or sea line which is mainly used for the transport. So India is very lucky to have the coastline of 5,700 kilometers, and Mumbai being the biggest port which handles 25% of the total trading of India. Then the pipeline, which is very new to India, consists of 3,497 kilometers for petroleum crude and 1,703 kilometers for refined products, and the 902 kilometers for the natural gas transportation. And the next one is air transport. Air transport being the quickest, but it is mostly expensive. We have 345 airports and 292 usable nowadays. So today we have the 93 large transport aircrafts which are used for the transportation of the cargo from one point to other point. Let's see the types of chemical industry. So the chemical industry is widely divided into different categories like inorganic, organic, ceramic, petrochemicals, agrochemicals, polymers, elastomers, explosive, fragrances and flavors, oleochemicals and pharmaceuticals. So mainly the types will be two only, the inorganic and organic. But in organic also we have divided into many types in order to differentiate them. So if we take the case of inorganic, we can have the example of ammonia and nitrogen. Then if you go for the organic, so it will include the basic chemicals in organic, and the other complex chemicals that we are again subdivided into the other parts. So in organic, it will come as phenol and urea. Then ceramic, we have the silica bricks and frit. Petrochemicals, we are already familiar. The example is ethylene and propylene. Agrochemicals, they are mainly including the fertilizer and insecticides. Then as far as the polymer industry is considered, all the plastics and other materials that comes in polymers. So they are polyethylene and polyester. The elastomer, they are polyisoprene and neoprene. Then explosives, the nitroglycerin and ammonium nitrate. The fragrances and flavors, so they will include benzyl benzoate and vanillin. The oleochemicals, that means the chemicals derived from the oils. So they are the lard, stearic acid. And the lastly, the pharmaceuticals, which produces the drugs. So the pharmaceuticals, it was not the part of chemical industry, but as it requires many chemical reactions and the chemical unit operations, so it can be taken under the chemical industry. So what is the syllabus for CH2004? So what we have done, we have divided the syllabus into 4 categories of the chemical industry, that is inorganic, natural products, petroleum and the polymerization. or we can say the polymer industry. So in inorganic, the things or the industries that we have to study are the sulfur and sulfuric acid, nitrogen industry, phosphorus industry, chloralkali industry and the potassium industry. Under the natural products, we have to discuss about the soap and detergent, then sugar and starch, pulp and paper industry, the fermentation, and which we will discuss little bit about the biotechnology also, and the rubber, which is natural and as well as the synthetic, we will discuss. Then in petroleum, we will mainly discuss about the petroleum processing, which are the processes under the petroleum. And then the polymerization, we will discuss the plastic and the polymers. So all this industry, so each unit will dedicated to certain industry, and in each industry we have to discuss the products under that. Like if you take the example of sulfur and sulfuric acid, so the products which are derived from the sulfur and the sulfuric that we will learn. If we take the case of nitrogen, we have to discuss about the ammonia and we have to discuss about the nitrophosphates. And similarly, phosphorus, we will discuss about the phosphoric acid and many on. Then in polymerization, we will discuss about the plastic and polymer. So many polymer reactions are there, so we will discuss in a brief. And the lastly, we will discuss about the material of the construction with reference to the above industry. So material of construction, that is a part of the material technology. So we will discuss which kind of material we have to use for the specific kind of the industry. Like if you take the example, suppose a reaction which produces a chemical which is highly corrosive, then we can't use the ferrous material because that will corrode. So in such a case, we will go for the glass lined reactors. So glass lined reaction will prevent the corrosion. But again, the problem with the glass is its fragile one. So you have to look how we can design a reactor and which material of the construction, in short we can say MOC, we use so that the reaction can take place in the reactor. So this is the short overview of the coming modules. Then how are the module designed for CS2004? So initial modules that will introduce the orientation to the chemical technology, that is the first one we are discussing now. Then the further module that will discuss chemical processes and the chemical operation with the symbols. So in each processes we have to discuss the various kind of the chemical reactions. So as far as the chemical engineer is considered, he should have the knowledge of chemical reaction. So why this we have to learn? Because that will tell you what is the stoichiometry of the chemical reaction, then we can have the material balance, and then we can have the energy related with that chemical reaction. So for that one, we need to have the chemical process, the unit processes for the chemical technology. Then if there are more than one reaction, then which reaction is feasible, which reaction is more economical, that can be studied by this one. The next one, to carry out this, we should have the unit operation. So unit operation such that the grinding or distillation or the heat exchanger, so that will come under the unit operation. So different kind of unit operation, and also the symbols for each unit operation we will discuss. So this is important when we are going for the flow sheets. So we have already seen in CPC the block diagram. So that was the input and output flow diagrams. So now we will go for the more complex thing, that is block flow diagrams, process flow diagrams, and the piping and instrumentation diagrams, or sometimes it's called as process and instrumentation diagrams also. So in this one we will see what is meant by BFD, what is meant by PFD, and what is meant by PNID. So what they are, how they are used to draw a chemical process, and how to read them, and also if process is given to you, how to draw them. So that we will discuss in brief in the module under BFD, PFD and PNID. Then after this one we will discuss each module, each industry that we have seen earlier. So the each industry now we will discuss in detail. So in each industry heading we will see the physical and chemical properties that are most important. Then we will see the consumption pattern of that particular product. Then we will see what are the raw materials sources required for the manufacturing. Then there are many types of process invented for that chemical. So different processes of manufacturing with PFD and chemical reaction involved in process. So here we will now discuss each process with the use of PFD. PNID will not go, only we will discuss the PFD over here. The PNID, how to draw and what the use of it, that is covered in the next subsequent subjects. So we will, as far as the chemical technology is considered, we will go for only the PFD and the different processes. And then the most important part of any process is the economics. So we will discuss the economics in a brief manner about that particular industry. So there are many reference books for this course, but mainly we will deal with the Dryden's Outlines of Chemical Technology by Gopal Ram and the Master Statistics. So the flow diagrams or the processes that you can see, they are mainly referred from the Dryden's Outlines of the Chemical Technology. Then some of the topics we will discuss with reference to the chemical process industries by Shrew. And then some of the things are also referred from Textbook of Chemical Technology Volume 1 and Volume 2. So you have to mainly deal with the Dryden's Outline of the Chemical Technology.